Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mindset, Teaching Outside the Box. We are your hosts, Jillian Willie.
And Eileen Edwards.
And today we are on part 3 of our mindfulness series here. So today we're going to wrap it up. Eileen is going to share 4 more mindfulness areas or techniques or topics, whatever you call it. I don't exactly know what you would call that, but these are going to be really good. So Eileen, what do you have for us?
All right. Yeah, I was just talking to my class on Friday that I've kind of been calling these like our mindfulness building blocks versus the tools, which we learned initially, because those mindfulness tools are like those basic like strategies that you need to be able to pull on and use. But these things are almost like building on the mindfulness tools. They're a little bit different. Still helpful and can use them, but they wouldn't necessarily be used in every situation. So the one that we just did last week in my class, and I'll start with, is mindful emotions, which is kind of similar to the idea of mindful thoughts and mindful labeling of thoughts. But in this case, it's not just talking about the thoughts. It's like the thoughts and the feeling kind of in the same time. And it really comes down to those emotions, whether they're good, bad, positive, negative, it doesn't matter what it is. We talked in class last week that all emotions are welcome. All of them are welcome. We shouldn't even judge them as good or bad, but just that they're there and that we feel them. That might be feeling them in our body, that might be having them associated with some kind of thought that's going on. But that we're noticing them, being aware of them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I really love that. I think that can be really, I think there are a couple things you said that have a lot of power, but I really like the idea of it, of the emotions not being positive or negative and just being what they are, because I think having that label just adds to it. If it's a negative, what we would call negative emotion, then you just feel even worse. But if it's just more of a, why am I feeling this way, or what do I feel, then I think it can be easier to kind of deal with and to understand, coming from a place of like, what triggered this, or why am I feeling this, rather than, oh, this just makes me feel icky, kind of bringing it to a different place. I think that holds a lot of power.
Yeah, we talked probably more about anger than anything. I mean, we talked about the idea of joy and fear, and one of my students used one of our vocabulary words from last year. He said melancholy.
Right.
And we talked about lots of different feelings, but then when we were talking through the practice of using it and talking about the examples and the feelings that might come up in our body and stuff like that, we focused on just the anger, something that, we can all relate to. We're humans. Humans get mad. We don't get mad on purpose. And so we were talking about that because it kind of had a lot of different layers to it, and a lot of different things that humans will just instinctively do because we're human, when there is the feeling of anger. So we talked about, our heart rate. We talked about that we might, clench our fists, our jaw might even tighten. We might feel tired afterwards, but we did spend some time really deeply talking about, not so much because of the anger, but the actual process of being aware of the anger and not pushing it away or getting upset with ourselves because we're angry, or anything like that. But the idea of noticing that we're feeling anger, labeling it as, okay, I'm feeling anger right now, or I'm feeling angry. Um, and then like that labeling process, like we did with the thoughts of like labeling our emotions, because we might feel angry right now, but then a few minutes from now, we might not feel angry so much, but we might feel disappointed, or we might feel again like tired. So we kind of talked through that idea of labeling our emotions, even just noticing our emotions, because some of the kids were like, I'm not having an emotion, because they only associate emotion with like really um, high energy, whether it's for good or bad reason. So they only associate it with like being excited or happy or fearful or angry. They don't notice all of the stuff that happens in between. And so we talked about a lot of different types of emotions that we can have, because we feel emotion in every moment. We just don't realize it most of the time.
Mhm. Oh, that's good. That's kind of making me think. Like, as you were saying that, I was thinking, well, what are you when you're just there, but maybe you're content or something. And you're right.
Yes.
Every moment can have an emotion. I like that way of thinking about it. And I think that could be really helpful for a lot of people in general, but kids, um, especially when they're starting to get to that feeling of emotion. Maybe it is anger or sadness or whatever. But I think for a lot of people, we start on a lower level of that feeling. Let's take anger, for example, and then it starts to build and escalate. And if we aren't aware that we're starting to feel that way,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons it escalates. So if you can start being more aware of your emotions, you might be able to catch how you feel before it gets to be uncontrollable or worse,
Mhm.
and then kind of, redirect it or use a tool to bring
Mhm.
yourself back and
Exactly.
recenter. So I think that's a really, again, I'm going to use that word powerful, but I think it's a really powerful mindfulness building block to teach kids and people in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they especially were very eager to share about kind of what happens if we don't um give our awareness and attention to an emotion. So they were sharing things about, what would happen if we just kind of push it away or bottle it up or pretend like it's not there. So they were very eager to talk about like that kind of stuff. And they were very, very aware of the fact that it doesn't just go away. It'll come back. It just might not come back how you expect it to. And in a lot of cases, when it does come back, it's going to be even worse for you than it would have had been in the first place if you'd just given it some attention.
Mhm.
So they were very eager to talk about that and then share their ideas on how it would maybe be different if they instead used a mindfulness tool. If they like stopped and were aware of it and gave it space, and then um, didn't, push it away, then what do you think, would happen, and how would it be different? Which, you know, they unanimously thought that it would be extremely different and the better choice as far as consequences of each of those things.
Mhm. Wow. Your student, like, I'm just sitting here thinking like how special that is that your students are already aware. I mean, that's the law of attraction. So even if they don't know it as that term or what,
Yeah.
if it's a universal law, they're aware of the fact that it does come back to you, and the fact that they're seeing the positives and using these strategies. I just think that's really powerful. And maybe it's because, I have younger kids.
Mhm.
So we have been we're taking it a lot slower
Yeah.
because they are younger. But, you know, I'm not seeing that because they're younger. They're not
Yeah.
quite getting it. So hearing that, I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Like, think about how impactful this is on their lives moving forward.
Yeah, they really seem to be intrigued by that. Like I said, they had that little bit of confusion when it came to labeling their current emotion because they were like, there is nothing. I'm just sitting here. We're just talking. This is good conversation. But then we, gave some time to, feel our body and notice our thoughts and what is it that our emotion could be right now. And then I did explain to them, which I think is really important, even so with the thoughts of, explaining to them that they are not their emotions. So just because they're feeling anger doesn't mean that they're an angry person. They're just feeling that at that moment. So, explaining to them that, all emotions are welcome and that they all have their own individual, purpose and help us process information, but that those emotions aren't our true selves.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's our feelings and emotions are just a guidance system. Like,
Yeah.
that's why we have them. They are not there for no reason. They are our internal guidance system designed to let us know when we are encountering a situation or a thought that makes us feel good, that aligns with our higher purpose or who we are. Um, or if we encounter something that is the opposite, that doesn't align. And most of the time, we just don't follow that. How often do we do things that we don't want to do? Or we put ourselves in situations again and again that we don't like. And there are other reasons for that and paradigms that come in, but that is the reason for those emotions and feelings. So it is very important to take note of how you feel so that
Yes,
you can say, okay, I do like this. Yeah, this is good. Or no, I don't like this. I don't want to do that again. So let's avoid that. Yeah.
absolutely. Another building block or tool, whatever you want to call it, is mindful walking, which obviously I need to practice. I was telling you a moment ago that I've fallen twice in the last 2 weeks. But that idea of, even I know that the way I shared it with them is, the idea of mindful walking, but really it's like mindful movement even. Um, and so really taking that awareness completely into that process of walking. So it really could be applied to the idea of, mindful swimming, or it's just giving your full awareness to that activity. And I know that there are some meditation teachers that teach like a walking meditation. So that is definitely a huge thing. Um, I don't do it. I imagine that I probably wouldn't be very successful at that. Apparently, walking is an issue for me. Um, but we've talked before, even of like taking a mindful shower, that idea of bringing 100% of your awareness to that one task.
Mhm. You could really do that with anything then, right? Like, it could apply to anything,
That's what I was
even
saying. It's almost like
things you
mindful
have to
movement.
do, right? Like,
Mhm.
even if you're cooking dinner, if you're
Yeah.
mindfully just focusing, right? So that one could be a good place for people to start if you're feeling busy, or even
Mhm.
with kids, because you're always doing something. So if you can focus on just that task, that could be a way to kind of ease into this and feel the effects of it. That's cool.
Yeah, I think what The reason why that a lot of people recommend mindful walking or walking meditation is because you learn all of these tools and strategies and techniques, but then a lot of people complain of not being able to apply it to their real life. So they're fine when they're sitting in meditation, and meditation really should be your life. It should be able to be applied to everything that you're doing. But a lot of people struggle with that, generalization or whatever. And so being able to do the strategies and components of meditation while walking then helps close that gap.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And I could see too the benefit for like people who don't like to sit still or who feel uncomfortable sitting. Um, then you get to move. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that's calming.
Yeah.
Most people are able to do it. So I could definitely see how that would be a good kind of place to start or transition, or even if you're a seasoned, at mindfulness, it could still be a really great building block or technique to use.
Yeah, and that's one of the ones that I consider like more of a building block instead of a tool, because it really is the ability to use the mindful body strategy tool, but in motion.
Taking it to the next level.
Yeah. And same thing with the next one. The next one is mindful eating, which is a tool that's talked a lot about in mindfulness circles. But that is another one of the building blocks, because it's really bringing your full awareness to that act of, providing yourself nutrition, and the fact that you're taking in food, you're taking in food and drink or whatever it is, and you're not just doing it mindlessly.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, people don't realize like we expend energy, right? So you need the energy back, otherwise you feel depleted. So food is really just, I mean, everything is, but food is just energy.
Energy.
So, you're putting that energy back into your body to fuel it, which a lot of people know that part of it, but I don't think we realize that it is just an exchange of energy. Um, and something too, I think, and this is something that I've heard and tried to put into practice myself, but it is hard with our paradigms and everything. We're so go, go, go. But to enjoy, like when you prepare yourself a meal, to actually enjoy it. And that's just, people say, like, I don't have time to cook, or I cook all this food and then, it it takes too much time, or, you rush through the meal. But I think when you take the time to make it and then you take the time to enjoy it, it kind of makes the making it part two easier, which kind of goes back to like a healthy, kind of eating idea too. But yeah, I think that's really important.
I was explaining it I had lunch duty last week, and I was explaining it to some of the kids because they were like, how elementary school kids are, and probably middle school too. Um, it's like they want that opportunity to be able to turn and talk with their friends. And it's, 30-minute period, and you have to be able to get the lunch, eat the lunch, and you want to talk to your friends. It was like if we could just be mindfully eating first, not the whole 30 minutes, but really mindfully eating for a chunk of that time, you probably would feel like you had a whole lot more time with your friends. But because they're trying to like focus on the talking with the friends, and every now and then like just throw a bite in there as like an afterthought, we get to the end of lunch and it's like, I didn't even get a chance to eat my lunch. But if we were mindfully eating, then they might find that they actually have quite a bit of time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And even too for adults, trying to multitask at lunch.
Yeah.
Think
Mm.
about my lunch period. I have been better this year. I have actually taken the time to eat and I don't do anything until I'm done. And I do find that I have a good like 15 minutes at least, which I felt like when I was eating and trying to do a bunch of things, I would look at the clock and I'm like, oh gosh, I have 5 minutes. So I do see the benefit in just eating first, but I think this does apply to adults too, because a lot of us do try to multitask and eat.
Yeah.
And it's that going back to trying to multitask, which we really can't do. So
No,
then
that's
you
so
don't
true.
do either of them efficiently or quickly. And,
Well, at all.
it makes you feel like chaotic.
Exactly. Absolutely. And the last building block, which is actually going to build off of the idea of mindful thoughts and loving kindness, is a gratitude practice, which my class has been doing for well over a year now, because they had me last year. But um, and I've had quite a few parents who've even reached out and said that they're, grateful for that piece of our day, that it really has changed their perspective. But we've done a couple of our podcast episodes on the idea of gratitude and the benefits of it. But that's definitely a mindfulness practice, because you're stopping and thinking in this moment, what are the things that you're grateful for? And there's really so much.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. When you really stop to think about it, everything in our world is something to be grateful for.
Yeah, just
So
for different reasons.
yeah. Yeah, it's just about how you look at it.
Yeah.
And we've talked too before about perception and how
Yep.
nothing is good or bad. It's just it just
It is.
is, and we apply the emotion to it. So, the good or the bad, it all has something good in it if we
Yeah.
if we choose to look for it. So there's either a lesson, or something good will come from it. We just have to work through the situation, that idea like it rains before it shines kind of thing. So I think that's beautiful. I know I've been working for a while to see things that way. And the paradigm, comes back, but then you just keep working at it. But gratitude is so powerful. So what you give out, you get back. So if you are thinking about the good and the gratitude, then that's what you're going to get back.
Yeah. And I think it makes sense that it's a mindfulness tool, because that idea of, one, stopping and thinking. So that's, that awareness, but then bringing your awareness to something like gratitude, regardless of what it is that you're grateful for, no matter what, it's going to be a good thing. It's going to be like a positive thing. I don't mean because the person is judging whatever it is that happened as positive. That's not what I mean. I mean that, even if you were grateful for something that may have been perceived initially as negative, but you're seeing it, if it's gratitude, you're seeing it in a positive way. And so obviously that practice of, expressing your gratitude is going to be a mindfulness tool, because it's going to, regardless of what you were thinking before you started the practice of gratitude, you're going to be going in a good direction.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big one, which is why we've talked about it many times before, and I'm sure we will again.
Oh yeah.
And it's very powerful. I mean, these are all really powerful. I think that's another one that it can be a little more seamless. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it can be more seamless because you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of time on it or go out of your way to do something different. It's just in your day to day as things come up, you know, why are you grateful for it? Why can it be a good thing, or how can it be a good thing? And there you go.
So I'm glad that we got to share them all. And for those that are in our Facebook group and follow our Facebook page, they might have seen that I shared the posters that can be put up in your classroom or at home for your children. They're good reminders for adults to remember what all of the tools and building blocks are, but they're obviously in a form that are more child friendly. So they're all on there. And anybody who would be interested in them is welcome to reach out to us.
They are awesome. So thank you so much for that. And we also have our YouTube channel. So check us out, Mindset Teaching Outside the Box. You can see all of our episodes live and interact with us through there as well. And we are always so grateful for everyone. And anything else before we wrap up?
Just grateful. That's all.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next time.